I'm Chance Dorland, and welcome to the Marmot's Whole podcast, brought to you by KoreaFM.net, an online radio station featuring independent musicians and original podcast content from the Korean Peninsula. I'm, of course, joined each week by Robert Kohler, a magazine editor here in Seoul who for years operated the Marmot's blog on rjkohler.com. Today we'll be focusing on K-pop. Not something that I would have predicted we'd be talking about, Rob, but it's not your run-of-the-mill K-pop story either, so let's get started here. Today, the Korea Times reported that the Center for a Multicultural Korea, which is a Seoul-based nonprofit organization, it plans to file a case before South Korea's Human Rights Commission over a possible human rights violation by JYP Entertainment for forcing a Taiwanese member of its girl group Twice, all capital letters, to apologize for waving Taiwan's national flag. So it's kind of a detailed story, but basically, the 16-year-old performer who is a Taiwanese native, she waved the flag of the Republic of China during a web broadcast of NBC's television show My Little Television. This happened actually back in November of last year, and at the same time, Japanese members of the group held out the flag of Japan. So, everybody was just kind of waving their flags. The footage was shown only in the online portion, and it was cut out from the official broadcast. However, this incident has now snowballed into this currently ongoing controversy that we're talking about now. And as the issue kept kind of gaining momentum, actually just Friday, so about 3 days ago, JYP Entertainment released a video clip through the group's YouTube channel where the 16-year-old performer apologized and said there is only one China. Now, JYP Entertainment maintains that the apology was not forced, and it notes that as the girl is a minor, the company waited for her parents to come to Korea to discuss the apology with them. And then to add to this whole ongoing story, actually, the homepage of JYP was shut down Sunday, so yesterday, after a cyber attack. And that attack has been rumored to be the work of Taiwanese members of, Anonymous, that big hacker group, as some kind of retaliation against the company. But from what I've seen, those have only been rumors. So that's kind of where we are now, Rob. So I guess, where do you want to start off? First, I'd say, why do you think this is such a big deal now? This didn't happen yesterday. This didn't even happen this month or last month, but in November. Maybe I'm just not hip anymore, but I don't remember hearing about this until about now.
Right. When this first went down, when the show went on, nobody really noticed it, but it came to the Chinese netizen attention through the efforts of a particular Taiwanese singer who's rather notorious for his pro-Beijing, pro-China views. In fact, I believe he's actually now a PRC citizen. And he has a history of, tipping off the Beijing authorities to entertainers or, to Taiwanese entertainers or Taiwanese figures engaging in what he considers to be pro-independence activities or making pro-independence statements. So
this guy's like a blatant mole that everyone knows does what he does, and he ragged on her. He let them know?
Well, I'm not sure if he's a mole per se, and he's pretty out in the open now. So basically he went on to not Twitter, but what is it? The Chinese equivalent to Twitter, basically outed her, and or not even outed her. Outed her would seem to suggest that what he was saying had some type of legitimacy to it, but basically he accused her of being by waving the Taiwanese flag on South Korean TV. He was that he accused her of engaging in pro-independence activities, and he also criticized her for appearing on Chinese TV in a group that had a Japanese member,
as if things couldn't get worse.
Yeah, this gets complicated because of the complicated feelings about Japan in Taiwan, where it's in Korea. Feelings about Japan, which are complicated also in Korea as well, but less so than they are in Taiwan, where there's a degree of, or again, I'm not an expert on anything Taiwanese, but there, from what I've read and from what I've seen, there seems to be a bit more historical ambivalence uh, towards Japan and the role Japan has played both in Taiwanese history and the role it currently plays. I mean, for example, the current president, the recently elected president of Taiwan, in her, I guess, her first speech to give after getting elected, she went out and thanked the United States and Japan. That's something that pretty much is inconceivable in Korea. So the relationship there, with Japan and Taiwan is complicated and quite. The popular opinion about Japan is quite different there than it is in Korea, but not for guys like this particular singer who, very much buys into the Beijing point of view that Japan is a nefarious force, both historically and today. So, but anyway, I mean, the main point of his criticism, it's maybe getting away from the main point. Anyway, the point is he outed her, and this created quite a stir in Chinese netizen circles, and so much so that a particular Chinese handset maker who had signed a deal with LG to market. LG provides their some of their what they call LTE support for their handsets. Anyway, they had told LG that they need to stop their relationship with the girl group singer, who was promoting this Chinese handsets maker's phone in Korea. So the Chinese took it very seriously, and obviously, JYP took it very seriously because, well, thanks to the Korean Wave, a lot of their, not just this particular group, but a lot of their musicians have a substantial fan base in China. So they're worried, and rightfully so, worried that, there's going to be a backlash because of this. And that eventually led to two apologies being made. Obviously, the videotaped apology by the young woman in question, but also by JYP itself, which went out and issued a statement of apology. So, I mean, it's definitely an unfortunate situation, and it's gotten worse since then because, after the apology, this created a lot of outrage, and rightfully so, in Taiwan, where even the newly elected president in Taiwan is like, what the F? Right.
Right. Those are her exact words. What the F?
Yeah. Right. And then that gets, that plays into, that gets mixed up in Taiwan with, again, kind of complicated feelings about Korea, where, there's some lingering resentment about what I guess they would consider the betrayal of Korea, switching its diplomatic relations from, in a very undiplomatic way, it should be pointed out, from Taiwan to the People's Republic of China, but also feelings, again, from what I've read and from what I've gathered, that Korea has become kind of the new Asia cool, and whereas Taiwan, it wasn't so long ago that Taiwan and Korea were basically on an equal footing, and now I think there's some people in Taiwan that feel like they're being left behind. And plus, I mean, there's the Korean entertainment is very popular in Taiwan, as it is in throughout a lot of countries in Asia. And there's some, that of course can create certain resentments in certain circles, and then there are trade issues as well. So, and it doesn't help that, when you give them an issue in which they should rightfully be upset, such as, where an entertainment, where, we have a situation where a young entertainer is being forced to. I actually watched the video, and when, people in Taiwan say, look like a video that was, one of ISIS's videos, right? They're not wrong. The video was quite disturbing. I mean, obviously, I don't want to make a comparison to. It wasn't nearly as disturbing as an ISIS video, but I mean, it was heartbreaking. I mean, and very political. I mean, where she went out and said, there's one China, and you know, um, and even the JYP apology too. Again, was very political in nature, saying that towing the Chinese line that there's one China. Um, yeah, it was. If you're Taiwanese, you really do have to wonder: is she's a Taiwanese entertainer. What kind of flag? Yeah, what flag was she supposed to fly?
Yeah, and then actually in the video, I guess I should have said that she was holding both the Korean flag and the Taiwanese flag.
Right, and all the members were holding the flags of their respective countries. I mean, you know, um, she's from Taiwan. I mean, there's no, what other flag is she going to fly?
So let's talk about this then. Obviously, this happened, and then as you mentioned, she was kind of outed by this guy. Should someone have thought about this and been like, okay, maybe we shouldn't have her hold the Taiwanese flag, or do you think that this could have not been an issue at all, and then no one would have said anything? Like, could anyone have guessed this would have been an issue? Because as you mentioned, what flag was she supposed to hold?
I don't really think so. I mean, even the ironic thing, I mean, part of it is because you're dealing with a guy who's a notorious troublemaker. And the ironic thing is, I mean, now Taiwanese netizens have, found pictures of him, on TV, waving the Taiwanese flag. Ironic, isn't it?
Well, I mean, he wasn't getting ready to like stomp on it. Like he was like waving the flag because you said he's gained citizenship now.
Well, I want to confirm that before I should. Well, I guess this is why God made Google. I'll confirm that, but I've heard that and read that from other sources that he's a PRC citizen. Now I'll confirm that in a second. But I mean, Taiwanese netizens, God bless them. They've found pictures, for example, of Chinese tourists that came to Taiwan prior to their recent election, and they're waving Taiwanese flags as a sign of support for the KMT, right? Because the KMT is very much, they're not pro-communist, but they are pro the idea of one China. So it's okay for it's okay for Chinese tourists that come to Taiwan and wave, the very same flag as a symbol of, as a political act of supporting the one China policy. But, a 16-year-old singer in Korea waves the same flag, and she's, a separatist and a person who needs to be punished. It's completely ridiculous.
And so, about this video that you mentioned, obviously you said it kind of had like a weird vibe to it. What do you think is happening to this girl now? Is she just listening to what people are telling her to do? Do you think she was sincere in her apology? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. She's 16 and she's a K-pop singer. She doesn't have a lot of control over anything, really.
Well, do I think she was sincere in her apology? I don't. It's hard to tell. I mean, I'm not her, right? I will say that, in cases like this, and which essentially what we're looking at here is a case of cyber shaming on a national level.
Yeah.
When things like this happen, you go into survival mode and you do what you can to make it stop. All right. It's definitely the case with her. It's also the case with JYP. I mean, a lot of, JYP is taking a lot of heat, and maybe rightfully so.
Yeah, as I mentioned, their website was taken down yesterday.
Well, not just that, but I mean, they're coming under a lot of criticism, both in Taiwan, ironically enough, also in China now, because a lot of the Chinese netizens now, or at least some Chinese netizens now, are trying to, now that there's been something of an international backlash, they're trying, Chinese netizens are coming up with these conspiracy theories that, it's really just JYP's fault that, JYP overreacted to this thing, and now they're trying to blame the Chinese netizens and for their own failure to show resolve, and they're coming into criticism in Korea too. I mean, obviously, they're being now they're being now they're facing a complaint with the National Human Rights Commission. Over allegations that they forced a young woman to actually make the apology. We'll discuss that a little bit later, but they're coming under a lot of they're getting a lot of grief now too. But to be honest, when you got that much money and that much when you got that much at stake in the Chinese market, and you're dealing with this mass cyber uprising against you. There are no easy choices here. Like the victim of any cyber shaming, you just want it to stop, and you go into panic mode.
And that's something that I hope people. Well, I don't know if they would or not, but yeah, this is a 16-year-old girl. Obviously, she's a star, so maybe she's used to a certain amount of attention and stuff like this. Yeah, but she's like 16. Could you imagine going through something like this when you were 16, let alone being part of a situation that's already complicated, as you mentioned, China and Taiwan, Japan and South Korea?
Right. You're a 16-year-old girl. You're living, far from home, and now you've got 1 billion people calling you a traitor. It's ugly, ugly stuff. And even today I was reading something in the Chosonobo that was talking about, even now in China, the authorities are like, this is too much.
Well, when the Chinese are saying it's too much.
Well, I mean, some of the Chinese, some of the Chinese papers linked to the government, were running articles today that were basically saying, well, that this was excessive. There was no need for this. Criticizing the other guy, the other Taiwanese singer, as we were talking about earlier, basically calling him a troublemaker. They also criticized JYP for making an apology, where they should have just sucked it up and showed a little resolve. So even you have articles appearing in Chinese papers saying that. So read into that what you will. And I'm not really surprised, because this wouldn't be the first time where the Chinese government has shown a degree of concern about expressions of ultra-nationalist feelings, in the population at large, especially online. Now, you would think, that the Chinese government kind of encourages these type of sentiments, and when they're being directed at enemies of the Chinese state, for example, Taiwanese separatists or Japan or whatnot. You would think that the Chinese government would be happy about that, but the way these sort of things work, they could easily get out of hand, and they could easily change direction. Where one day, you have people online that are, up in arms about Taiwan or Japan, but the next day they might be up in arms about, their own government.
Yeah, that might be a valid fear if people are like, we're all upset. Oh, well, what else should we be upset about? Like, hey, we've just raised a bunch of hell. Maybe this could go somewhere.
Right. And there's also plenty of historical precedent in China for, anti-foreign sentiment, turning around and getting their own government in trouble. Where anger, being directed outside all of a sudden turns around and gets directed inward. So, I could see how the Chinese government would be concerned. Plus, I mean, it doesn't make them look good. This incident is, there's very few ways in which this plays out. There are very few ways in which, making a 16-year-old girl, go on video and make, what was clearly a fearful apology. There's very few ways that works out well. Yeah, there's no way that looks good.
So something that you talked about earlier, and you said we could catch up on it a little bit later. Let's do that. This whole human rights issue. Obviously, as I reported, just today. Let me get that information again. It's being brought to South Korea's Human Rights Commission by the Center for a Multicultural Korea, saying that this is a possible human rights violation. So, usually, actually, I was doing an interview earlier today, and I was explaining to someone that, working here in South Korea, when you hear human rights, usually it's always about North Korea. But there have been a few cases, I think in the last year specifically, where human rights issues have come up here in South Korea.
Oh, of course, yeah, and there are plenty of reasons for that.
So then, what do you think is going to happen with this? Is, as you mentioned, maybe it would have been just better for this JYP Entertainment Group to have kind of like we're sorry, but, hey, it is what it is. It's not a big deal, as opposed to kind of more bending over backwards with an apology. And now we're leading to this accusation that, this girl was kind of coerced into making this video. Do you think that this is now a whole new dimension of this?
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, we need to see how this works out. I mean, they're accusing JYP of forcing the young woman to make an apology. JYP saying they did no such thing. And actually in their statement was like, to do something like that would be really, really bad thing to do. What they say is that, that decision to make that video was done, in consultation with her parents, and, her parents flew in from Taiwan, and, she talked with them, and basically made it sound like this was their call, which it may well have been. I mean, her parents may have said, her parents may have said, look, we need to get ahead of this thing. I mean, it's not just JYP's money at stake here; it's her career too, right?
Yeah, I saw some discussion about how, I forget the group. A group was talking about, or there were rumors about a group trying to buy her. Literally, they kind of phrase it like buy her from JYP, like buy the rights to her career, like she's a commodity. Which, K-pop singers literally are a commodity, but it's just weird to use that wording for a 16-year-old girl. So there's a lot of investment in her, and there could be, depending on how this goes, there could be a lot more to her career, or maybe not so much.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, the rumor you were speaking about is a Taiwanese entertainment company with a rumor going out that they would try to buy her contract from JYP, but JYP is like, no, it's a groundless rumor, and she's a major asset of ours, and we're not. That
was the wording that I saw. She's a major asset of ours, and I was like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, look, sports teams make those kind of statements all the time, so I mean, that one doesn't bother me, but in the case, in this case, what we're talking, what it comes down to is whether JYP forced her to go out and make that video. And like I said, we don't know. JYP denies it. As far as I know, the girl in question hasn't made any statement to that effect, not yet anyway, since the lawsuit was, or since the complaint got raised. The group, what was it, the Multicultural Center of Korea? I don't know what their English name is.
The Center for a Multicultural Korea. That's the English name, yeah.
Right. Just because they claim it so doesn't necessarily mean it is. Likewise, just because JYP denies it doesn't mean it is. I think they're hoping that the Human Rights Commission will launch an investigation to see whether there was coercion involved. But there's nothing about that flag that suggests Taiwanese independence. That is the flag of the Republic of China. And more specifically, it's a flag that is closely associated with the KMT, which is very much a Chinese unification party. Now, if you were pro Taiwanese independence, she would have probably, she would have held up like a green banner. I think, that's the color associated with the political party in Taiwan that's associated with the independence movement. But the KMT flag, I mean, that's the flag that you'll see in every ethnic Chinese school in Korea, right? Because they're all associated with the Republic of China government.
Yeah, I mean, like in the States, Donald Trump, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but, say what you will, and then Bernie Sanders, I'm a big fan of Bernie Sanders. They both would have, like, a pin with the United States flag, but they're entirely different ideologies.
Not just that. I mean, like, even if you go, like, to San Francisco's Chinatown or Chinatowns anywhere in the United States, if you look at if you go to the headquarters of the local Chinese associations, a lot of them fly the ROC flag. There is nothing anti-Chinese about that flag. It's anti-PRC, maybe, right? It might be anti-communist, but it's not anti-Chinese. It's not separatist, right? And as I pointed out earlier, you have Chinese tourists going to Taiwan. At least, again, Taiwanese netizens have gone in and found pictures of Chinese tourists coming to Taiwan and flying that flag as a symbol of, as a symbol of support for the KMT, out of feelings that, the KMT supports the one China policy, or at least the KMT supports the idea of, one indivisible China. In fact, there have been times where, again, where the Chinese government has complained about, efforts in certain quarters in Taiwan to change the flag, because they view efforts to change the flag as an expression of independence sentiment. So, yeah, this, I just don't get it.
Well, as always, good to speak with you, Rob. An interesting topic for tonight's show. Like I said, never thought we'd be talking about K-pop, but it's funny how even talking about K-pop can bring you into so many different territories, so many different topics in the history of the region, and everything always ends up involving Japan one way or the other. So,
well, it could be worse. We could be talking about Justin Bieber. So,
Oh man, Justin Bieber. People have kind of forgiven him a little bit. I remember it was a couple years ago. People were like, deport Justin Bieber, get rid of this guy. And now I guess we've moved on to other topics. But yeah, that was a good time when everybody was anti-Bieber, and maybe we can bring that back.
Yeah, indeed.
Let's end there, Rob. Always good to speak with you, and we'll have a non-K-pop related topic for next week.
All right, talk to you next week.